Hey y'all, it's Mark again. Back for another video the same night. Hat's kind of messed up here. Oh man, there you go. uh, I talked about last few videos. I talked about my favorite movies and television shows. Well, now I got to thinking, why not talk about my favorite era of wrestling and wrestlers? Yeah. Um, I like the WWF before it became WWE. When it became WWE, that's when I lost interest. I don't know, just the vibe wasn't the same anymore, and I don't know, y'all. I like old wrestling better, to be honest with you. I mean, hey, that's if you love new wrestling, hey, that's cool. A lot of my friends do. I haven't really enjoyed it since the early 2000s. After that, I was kind of like, eh, I don't know, man. Just it's not the same anymore. I I grew up, I was like I said, I was born in the mid '80s, so late. My favorite era of wrestling was from the late '80s all the way to the early 2000s. To me, that was the best time for wrestling, and especially the Attitude Era in WWF, like Steve Austin and stuff, and Triple H, The Undertaker, Kane. Oh man, those were the days, y'all. That's when wrestling was wrestling, and WCW in the mid late '90s. Oh man, I loved it. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hollywood Hogan. Too sweet. How they would do it. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, today's wrestling. I'll give you all this. Today's wrestling skills might be better than they were back in the day, but the storylines and the vibe just isn't there for me anymore. That's why I haven't watched wrestling in 20 years almost. I quit watching wrestling in the early 2000s. So it's been like 20 years, and it hasn't been the same since damn man, my hat's all crooked there. It's annoying the hell out of me. All right, back then, late '80s, early '90s WWF. You had the Rockers, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty tag team wrestling, the Legion of Doom, the Hart Foundation. I was a big Bret Hart fan back then. Hulk Hogan, Razor Ramon. Uh, you just don't see wrestling like that anymore, y'all. WCW, WWF. I was a big ECW fan too. Paul Heyman and all that. Yeah, ECW was a nother level, a whole nother level of wrestling, and it was one of the best times for wrestling, in my opinion. WWF, ECW, WCW. Nowadays, I don't know, man. I don't really feel wrestling anymore like I used to. It's like I said, it's the storylines and the vibe was so much better in the '90s than it is now. I don't know. It's like people enjoy wrestling. That's cool, but I just don't feel it anymore. I don't feel I'm not feeling it. I'd rather just watch old wrestling. Keep the memories alive, and the late '80s to the early 2000s was definitely my definitely my favorite time in wrestling. It just it's not the same anymore. But I would say the Attitude Era of the '90s, WWF was probably my favorite, along with ECW. But I was a big WCW fan too. Sting, uh, the Crow Sting was awesome. Hollywood Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Goldberg. That's when wrestling was wrestling, dudes. That's that's why I miss it so much, man. It just these days it's like okay, it just don't interest me. I tried watching wrestling on TV. I tried and tried. I can't get into it. But hey, man, like I said, if you enjoy it, hey, have fun. Watch it if you enjoy it. But if the vibe ain't there for me, I'm not gonna watch it. I remember when I was a kid, I went to a few, pay-per-view. Well, not pay-per-views per se, but I did go to a few wrestling shows. I remember one being a WWF Monday Night Raw in 1994 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My father took me to a Monday Night Raw, and that was awesome. And then I remember my parents taking me to a few WCW Saturday main event nights live. That was awesome too. I got to see Sting versus Bret Hart in 1998 at a live house show in Jackson, Mississippi. And I remember I've been to a few WWF live shows too back then. When it was still WWE in the early 2000s. I've been to a few of them. I've seen Chris Jericho and Edge, the Dudley Boys. The Dudley Boys were awesome in ECW, man. And Rob Van Dam. Remember, he went like this. He would do his hands. He'd be like, "I'm the whole fucking show." That was Rob Van Dam's thing. And he had Sabu, Tommy Dreamer. Those are definitely some ECW legends. But yeah, it's I guess I'll go ahead and end the video. I'm just rambling on here, but yeah, man, old wrestling. I miss it. I miss old wrestling, dude. I wish they would bring it back. But I'll go ahead and end the video, and I will see y'all next time. Have a good night.